So this is my laundry. Hang on, it's pretty messy in here. Let me just quickly tidy up for you. And this is my laundry room that I'm going to measure up to build a new laundry bench top. And I'm going to use form ply, which is just plywood with 2 black sheets over the faces of it. So I'm doing this because I didn't want to spend thousands of dollars calling in a professional to get a custom built, and I thought that I could do a good enough job and save myself thousands of dollars doing it. And I like cutting stuff up on the table saw. Just don't copy any of my techniques here because I don't know what I'm doing. I just pretend to know what I'm doing, and it's gotten me pretty far. So all I'm doing here is just cutting up big boards into smaller boards and hoping they kind of fit together somewhat nicely. This bit here is like the legs of the bench top, and it's going to have 3 shelves that I can put laundry stuff on. But before I can do anything with those shelves, I gotta cut out a little notch so that it'll fit across the tile at the bottom of the wall. And that means that I needed a smaller saw. So circular saw is the way to go. So even now, a circular saw absolutely terrifies me, so I'm just gonna look away while this happens. And I'll just finish up the cut with a normal handsaw. So now that that's done, I can finally check the fit of that cut on the first tile. Except that this just proves that I can't even do a measurement right, and I left about 20 mils gap. Oh well, you won't be able to see it, so I'll just make that the inside panel. Just gotta make sure that I do it right on the outside panel that you can see, so fingers crossed here. Okay, so that should be right now, hopefully. So my plan for the shelves is not to just screw it in with screws, but to actually cut a notch or a groove that the shelves can sit in. So that way it just makes it a little bit stronger. And I'll just do that by running the panels over the table saw enough times so that I get a wide enough groove for the shelves to sit in. So you can see what I mean here. Now I just got to cut out all the material in between those 2 slots. This actually took ages, but through the magic of editing, here it is. And to clean it off, you're supposed to use a chisel, but I don't have one because I don't know what I'm doing, so a screwdriver does the job. Don't judge me. And the shelves will just sit in like this. And now I'm just going to glue all of that into place with my patented zigzag distribution method. And I don't have a brush, so I'll finger that down. Ooh, that sounded a bit wrong. Okay, and this is the first leg that the bench top will sit on. The glue's still wet, so it won't hold properly, so some screws to hold down the joints will be necessary. Now for the middle leg, I'm going to cut 3 shelves, so 1 slot here, and another slot over here, and another slot over here. And this tiny slot is when I suddenly forgot how to measure and accidentally made a cut where I wasn't supposed to. Oh well, it's gonna have character. When I put it together, no one's gonna notice it. Well, except me, but I already know about it and I've already forgiven myself for it. And now it's time to make the door. You can see that it's a bit too long for my table saw, so I had to use my circular saw to chop it down to size, but that leaves a bit of a jagged edge, so I had to finish that up with my table saw. And perfect, so I can measure sometimes. And now it's just time to put these Blum cabinet hinges on, and just to be safe, I also got the Kreg cabinet jig just to be able to line up the holes where the hinges need to go. I didn't have to get this jig, but using it to cut a hole is so much easier than drilling out a hole myself manually. And doing it this way leaves no room for mistakes, so that's very good for me. And the fit and positioning at the end is just perfect. Okay, so now comes the big moment of truth, whether this thing is actually going to fit or not. And for once, I've actually got the measurements right this time. But the face of it right now has the wood edging showing, so I'm going to put some black edge banding on, and that'll hide the ugly shelf notches as well. To do that, I like to just use some baking paper over the top of the edge banding just to prevent the glue squeeze out from coming out and sticking to the iron, because nobody likes a sticky iron. And now once that's done, it's just a matter of cutting the excess off with a normal Stanley knife. And now we just need to repeat the process for all the edges. and even for the cabinet door as well. So now that the edges are all black now, I can put the two legs back into position just to see how it looks, and it looks much better now. And at this point I can try the door on for size as well. And that looks pretty good, but the door can't really go all the way down to the bottom because it'll scrape on the floor when you try to open it. So we just need a small little spacer bit that goes underneath it. Yeah, like that. Fitting the actual doors on was actually a big challenge because my impact driver was way too long for it, so I had to use a short stubby screwdriver to get that in. And then after that I can just whack a handle on. Oof, look at that soft close mechanism right there. Okay, bit of cleanup first before we can put everything back into position now. And I'm really happy with how this door turned out as well. Okay, onto the benchtop itself. So I just picked up this Acacia project panel from my local hardware store, and it was pretty cheap because it was raw and pretty unfinished, so I was gonna have to do a lot of sanding to get the smooth finish that I wanted. But that's okay, we'll get to that when we get to it. The other thing I forgot to do was to drill big holes in it as well so that the water pipes can get through. And that included the benchtop as well, so that the electrical cable for the washing machine could actually pass through. And just to make it feel nicer, I gave the top edge a bit of a round over. And now it's onto the sanding. So I won't bore you with it in this video, but it took ages and I actually had to use a really good rocking method back and forth until the whole thing was super smooth to the touch. And then I gave it a few coats of this hard wax oil, which I just wiped on with a rag, and it just gave it a lot of character and a lot of color as well. And lastly, I just had to put a top on the leg section so that the benchtop had something to bolt onto, because I didn't have no pocket hole jigs. And I didn't want to buy another jig because they're hella expensive. Okay, back into the laundry for the final assembly hopefully. And this time, everything should just fit like a glove. I used the benchtop offcut here to create a bit of a spacer for the end panel to drill into, and some fasteners to fix into place as well. And then to fix the whole thing to the wall, I used a stud finder to find all the studs and mark them with masking tape so I knew where to drill into when I was holding the piece. And somehow I picked up a little cotton fiber here on my clothes. I don't know where that came from. And this is what it all looks like done without the benchtop in yet. So let's put the benchtop in. Ooh, fits like a glove and looks really good. Now we'll just fix it into place from the bottom of the two leg thingies, and also fix it to the wall with these little 90-degree bracket thingies as well. Okay, now we push the water drainage pipe into the hole that I made for it and shove it down the hole in the sink. I don't know what it's called, but it's made for the dirty laundry water. And then we do the same for the power cord, except that I'm pushing it through the middle of that leg panel thingy and up through the hole in the benchtop. Before I plug it in, I gotta push the washing machine into place so the cord's long enough. Oh, and I gotta mention these little hockey puck legs for the washing machines. I can't recommend them enough. They dampen the vibrations and just stop the washing machines from walking around when you're doing a load. Okay, power cable can go in now. And the last step is to just silicone off the edges to give it that seamless look. And really all I'm using is just silicone, some soapy water, and a paddle pop stick. All I did was just run a bead of silicone all along the edge, and then spray that bead with some soapy water, and then scrape off the excess with the paddle pop stick. Just use a tissue to wipe off the excess when it gets too much. And I'll do the other side as well where it meets the sink. So same deal, silicone, soapy water, and paddle pop stick. And there we have a finished laundry benchtop with a washing machine and no dryer just yet, but I have the perfect substitute for it right here. Hopefully this end result is what got you to click on this video, and now you can see that it's not that hard to build one for yourself. I ended up spending roughly about $330 in raw material and a bit of investment into some decent tools for the job as well. But it's well worth it because it means that you can do so many more projects later as well. So I'll leave some links down below in the video description for the materials that I use, and feel free to follow along to make your own laundry benchtop, just like mine. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.